Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the meeting of the Audit and Standards Committee. We have apologies for Phil Butters and Steph Talbot, and Phil Rees is standing in for Steph Talbot, I understand. And the other apology we have is for Barry Panter, who's unable to make the meeting this evening. Do we have anything else that we need to add to that, Dan? I don't think we do, do we? No. Okay. Okay, item 2 then, declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations of interest that they need to make in relation to items on the agenda? No? Okay, thank you. Item 3 then, the minutes of the previous meeting. I've read through the minutes of the previous meeting and I'm happy with them. Does anybody have any issues that they believe need correcting on these? No? Okay, thanks. So we'll take those as being an accurate record of the meeting. On to item 4 then, the internal audit update for Q1, and Claire is here to give us a run through on that. So whenever you're ready, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the first quarter update of the work that the internal audit team have completed so far this year. So it covers the 1st of April to the end of June. So just taking you on to page 7 of the report. Sorry, my fingers jumped about. Sorry, page 8, sorry, of the report. So the table at the top of page 8 there, you've got the audits that have been completed up until the end of June. So there was 2 audits that were completed. The first being council tax and national non-domestic rates, which was a health check audit, and this received a good opinion. And the treasury management health check audit, which also received a good opinion. And in table 2, you can see there the levels of assurance and the definition. So both those audits got good, which is the highest level. So effective reliance can be placed on those systems, which is obviously pleasing to report to the committee. Further down, paragraph 2.3, in table 3, you've got a list of the audits that were still in progress as at the end of June. So we have got quite a list of reports in progress. So they are payroll. Sorry, my button's not working to scroll down. I should just use paper, shouldn't I? Yeah, sorry, I'm over the page now. So we've got payroll, we've got an income health check, purchase to pay health check, planning enforcement, safeguarding, procurement and contract management, risk management, project governance, and IT home working. So as you can see, those are at various stages from audits being prepared through to the field work, through to the draft reports being completed. And I know that a number of those reports have been completed now, so they'll be coming through in Q2 when but the next committee meeting there we reported through. So as well as completing audits, we also track recommendations. So where we've made area recommendations for improvement from previous audit work, we track those through to make sure those recommendations are being implemented. So when managers say that they've completed that, we'll check and make sure that's happening. So as at the end of June, of the 293 recommendations that have been made, 264 have been implemented. So that represents 90% of the recommendations being implemented, which is obviously really positive position to be in at the start of the year. And we're aiming for sort of 96 by the time we get to the year end. So obviously on track to achieve that. And in the appendix, you can see more detail there in terms of a split between directorates and split between what recommendations are outstanding and what levels they're at. I think that's all I was going to say, Chair. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Anybody, any questions? Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. With regard, I mean, obviously, I think I worked out earlier, it's 93% of the outstanding recommendations that have been done, or chief execs, or I suppose I'm asking, are people being lent on to make sure that these have been done in a timely fashion? It looks very odd that it's one directorate and not spread across everybody. So
I think that's probably a bit skewed because that's where the most of audits are completed, because they're the more like sort of all the financial audits sit in that section, for example. Excuse me, and some of the cross-cutting areas, like some of the corporate things that we do that are cross-cutting, tend to sit within that area as well. So I think that maybe skews it a little bit because they've got high portion of recommendations, they have a higher number of audits. But yeah, so maybe that skews it slightly. But yeah, it's a fair comment that, you know, that's where the most of the audit, the outstanding recommendations sit, and we do need to track those and make sure those are implemented. Happy to feed that back. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Do we have any other questions on the report? No? Okay, thanks, Claire. We'll
Thank
move
you.
on to item 5, the corporate risk management report for Q4 21-22 and the latest quarter, which is Q1 22-23. Dan,
Yes,
whenever you're ready.
thank you, Chair. Apologies, members, firstly, for not being Simon Sowerby. I'm afraid he's on leave today, so you'll have to tolerate my presentation of this report, which you'll be used to because it's a standard update report. And as the Chair says, we're looking at Q4 of the last period and then Q1 of this. So the purpose of this report is twofold, really, or there's two key aspects to this report that I'll draw your attention to. If I may, as you're aware, we use the GRACE risk management system, and we are in the habit of reporting back to this committee fairly regularly on outstanding risks at a higher level. In this case, and following a resolution at a previous committee, we have appended at Appendix B a brief summary of the risks where they are at the higher levels of the medium 7, 8, or 9, and those are appended at Appendix B. So I'm sure you've all had a chance to have a look at those. And if you've got any questions in relation to those, I'll do my very best to field them or follow up afterwards if I can't. And the other aspect of this report that I wanted to draw your attention to is found on page 2 under the issues section, and that is in effect the response or the results of an audit that was carried out and the actions that are taking place there. So again, the audit, which was taken up by colleagues, undertaken by colleagues in Stoke, has made 9 recommendations, 1 medium recommendation and 8 low recommendations. Now, the medium recommendation is set out there in the report before you, and that is in relation to giving some clarity in the risk registers, these risk maps that you'll be familiar with, and how they correlate with corporate objectives. And the thinking there is so that officers can focus their resources more appropriately dealing with risks that link in, more closely to key corporate objectives. So we're not spending, as the report says, we avoid officers considering and responding to irrelevant risks that don't have an impact on the services they provide. So that's the one medium implication, and those are in hand or in progress. And then there is a further 8 low recommendations, which again are all in hand or have dates scheduled. And I do have those available on my screen. I can run through them with you if you really like, but they're fairly low key and administrative matters. So through you, Chair, that's the only things I wanted to draw attention to in this report. And over to you, members.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Questions, anybody? No? So we've got no questions. So we're asked to note 4 different particular points. And in addition to that, as we've done on several previous occasions, identify any risks we want to look into in more detail at the next meeting. Has anybody got any suggestions for particular risk areas that they want to look at when we meet again? It's all within this, Mike, because we've got 5 points. The first 4 points are to note the various issues that have been raised, and then the final one is to identify any future risk profiles. If nobody has anything, then what I'll do is I'll look at it when I do my report on it, and I'll submit something to you if that's all right, Dan, and then we can just deal with that afterwards. So we're happy to note the various points. Yep. Okay. Thanks very much then. Okay, then item number 6, then the committee work plan, which is on page 49. Right, has everybody got that in front of them now? Obviously, as you can see, there's not a huge amount on for tonight's meeting, but we've got quite a busy meeting on the 14th of November, because obviously at that stage we're going to be looking at the audited accounts. I haven't got anything else that I would like to bring to that meeting apart from any potential risk items that we want to look at. Has anybody got anything else, Mike?
Yeah, and it works in quite nicely for the 6th of February. Would it be possible, and I am sorry, Sarah, because it's going to come your way and you're going to have to farm it out. the town deal monies, you know, you're talking about the best part of £50 million. And it's never come anywhere near this committee that I'm aware of. I think it's brushed past the finance committee in the past, but maybe, you know, some sort of annual report with where we are on the spend on that against budget, you know, are we behind target, etc., etc. A sort of a project management type report, because I think it's something that's quite viable that we should be looking at.
Yeah, it doesn't relate directly to the council funding, I suppose, but I mean, I don't see any problem in us receiving an update on the different aspects of the town deal monies and how they've been spent. So, sorry, go on.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mike. It falls under sort of economic environment place. I know Simon Kennedy did well, he didn't actually, I think Martin Hamill did it for him, did a report to there every quarter telling you where they are with things. So that's the basic. I would have thought that would be the place for this to go. And it goes to that committee.
Well, I think it should come to audit. I'm not asking for a quarterly report. I'm asking for an annual audit report. So, you know, that's my stance on that. But I take your point, Steve. I'm not wishing to start an argument about it. But
Well,
I
just
think
not do it twice. That was the only thing I'm thinking about. You know.
Well,
I'm inclined to agree with the portfolio holder. As a compromise, would it be possible for this committee to see a copy of whatever report goes to the next scheduled meeting of the relevant scrutiny committee, because the work associated with producing that report will already be happening. And if there are any questions that are specific to audit in relation to that, we could then use that meeting here as an opportunity to raise those. But I don't see a case for asking officers to apply additional resource to making a new report.
well, presumably if they're doing a quarterly report, that'll be fairly up to date in any case. So you're happy with that? That we, you know, we bring the most recent quarterly report in. Sorry.
I was just going to pick up, one of the internal audits that we're currently working on is project governance, which is all our big projects in the capital programme, town deal funds, etc. So that is something that internal audit are looking into from a governance point of view, and maybe we could sort of feed something around that audit in relation to a bit of an overview from where we are with projects in respect of your inquiry.
Okay, what's the timing on that though? Because I don't want that to be something that comes back in 9 months' time. You know, I'm quite happy to wait until February because it looks quite a low sort of agenda night.
Yeah, go on, Claire, if you wouldn't mind.
We are currently in the middle of the field work for that audit at the minute. It is listed under the work in progress. So I would have thought by February we could have that concluded. If, you know, if we're getting all the information back from officers, we can perhaps bring a bit more information back in the February meeting. That's helpful. With that being a shorter meeting, we can add more into the report at that stage.
I mean, I'll make a note of the fact that we would like something in the way of a report for the February meeting. And if the audit's complete, then we can look in a bit more detail at the audit. If it's not complete, then what we can do is simply look at the most recent report that's gone to economic development or whatever.
I'm sorry, Chair, I'm not happy with that. And I'll officially move it. If you need me to move it, I will move that the committee has that. So, you know, there's a lot of if, buts and maybes here. And, you know, I understand, I'm not asking the audit team, because again, we're sort of wandering away from the details. I wanted was a detailed audit report on how we are doing the spend against budget and against timescales for the town deal. Now, if there's a lot of that work already done for the Economic Development Committee, that's fine, but that's aimed at economic development. It's not aimed at pure audit, and that's what this committee is.
Mark.
Only to ask if either the portfolio holder or our officers present have a view on whether or not what Councillor Stubbs is asking for is genuinely audit, or whether it is properly the sphere of the scrutiny committee, because it sounds to me as though it is something that should be scrutinised by scrutiny. And that's where I would like to see it go. First of all, I don't wish to curtail anything that this committee might wish to discuss, which is why, like you, Chair, I'm very happy for it to appear on the agenda. And at that point, if there are any questions that are specific to audit that do actually engage with the remit of this committee, those questions can be asked. But if Councillor Stubbs is willing to push it to a vote, I'd be happy to say that I will vote against that on the basis that I haven't heard anything tonight that says to me, this is an audit matter for this committee. If Councillor Stubbs wants to scrutinise something, Councillor Stubbs should do it through the scrutiny process.
Could I just make a suggestion that a lot of this argument seems to be just semantic about what's audit and what's scrutiny? One is sort of a form of the other, and I would, I'd agree with Councillor Stubbs, and I would certainly be prepared to second his proposal that calling something doesn't make it something. It isn't necessarily a scrutiny matter if it is to be brought up by my colleague under this committee. It isn't either is or isn't. If somebody is suggesting that it should be brought up here, then it should be brought up here and then go to scrutiny, because there'll be nothing to scrutinise otherwise, will there?
Dan, have you got a view on that?
Thank you, Chair. I have a view on most things, and it's always been a tension, you know, where audit and standards remit stops and a finance committee scrutiny remit starts. And I was always told that the remit of the Audit and Standards Committee is to satisfy itself that the control that the framework and measures of control are in place and are functioning satisfactorily. And then the role of scrutiny is to get into the detail in terms of, you know, performance within that framework, if you like. Now, it's handy that we're looking at the work plan, isn't it? Because you see on there things like the Treasury Management Annual Report and the draft statement of accounts and things. You know, it's ultimately a matter for the chairs of the relevant committees and members. But if what is being asked for is simply, you know, a view of the accounts and you know, a look to see what is happening around the numbers, so we can be sure that there is an adequate framework of governance in place, then I don't think that's wholly out with the role of this committee. But the Finance Committee, I think, the Finance and Assets Scrutiny Committee is probably the one to interrogate performance, you know, against expectations and spend and those sorts of things. So I don't know whether that helps or muddies the water further, but that's the best compromise I think I can think of on the spot, Chair.
Yeah. I mean, what we've got to watch is that we don't move. The Audit Committee is primarily procedural, isn't it? It's not there to examine whether the actual money has been spent at a certain level. It's whether the procedures are being followed that ensure that it's spent in that way. Is it maybe something that should be brought up at the FAPS committee tomorrow night instead? I mean, given that you're asking for something for February, we've got another bite of the cherry when we have a meeting in November. So if you're unhappy with what you get from any discussions we might have at the FAPS committee tomorrow, then we can revisit that in November, which will give us plenty of time to deal with it for February. That's a compromise I'm offering you.
You've had a motion put forward, it's been seconded, unless it's been ruled out of order, which I don't think Dan has ruled it out of order, then it's got to go to a vote. And if you want to vote it down, then you can vote it down. But that's where I stand at the moment, and obviously one of the councillors that seconded the motion. So
okay, so if you want to go to the vote, then okay. Sorry, Joan, go on.
Just make the comment, there seems to be an overlap here. What there shouldn't be is duplication of work and effort. So if one particular committee is doing something, it's usually tabled for the others to look at or scrutinise, rather than actually redo the work and go through it with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just a waste of effort.
Could I suggest that nobody's suggesting that anybody needs to redo any work or to scrutinise what is in fact just being observed? I think the point that Councillor Stubbs is making, and which I would second his point, is that the more knowledge that we have, not so much about the actual content of the stuff, but about the procedure, the more knowledge that we have, the better and informed our decisions will be when it comes to scrutiny. Which is why I'd second the motion. And I don't think it necessarily involves duplication or extra work on behalf of the officers. It's just a matter of making sure that all the information is in front of people before they go to their next meeting. And I can't think that that's a big ask, or that anything other than a semantic difference between looking at something and scrutinising it, or looking at something and anatomizing something.
Yeah, the problem is that we're asking the staff to do another report potentially. So what we already know is that there's an ongoing audit into the area that we're discussing. Now, we can't guarantee at this moment in time that the audit will be absolutely complete by February. So what I'm suggesting is that we look at it again in November. But if you want to put it to the vote, if you want to just tell me again what the motion is, Mike, then we can put it to the vote. That's fine.
But I believe the audit committee should look at I think Dan's words were much more professional than mine, but basically looking at the procedures, how the town deal funds are administered, and do they fall within I think it's the department now, into the Department for Levelling Up procedures. We've never looked at them procedures. They've never come to us, and I'm very happy to be proved wrong, but I don't believe they have.
Okay, so the motion is that the audit committee should look at the procedures relating to how the town deal monies are spent and reported upon in February, at the February meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chair, if I may, I don't anticipate any difficulties if the motion is carried, bringing to you, an outline of the government arrangements that are in place, and I guess a comparison against, whatever it is government is telling us we need to have in place. The question of, whether they're operating effectively and all that sort of thing is what Claire will be reporting on after having done the detailed audit. So we might be able to sensibly give you the first half of that, but I wouldn't want to try and preempt or truncate or do Claire's job on an expedited basis for the rest of what you're asking for. I think
that's absolutely fine.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so those in favour then? That's 3 in favour. Those against? And obviously as the chair, I've got the casting vote. So the motion fails. That won't preclude us from discussing it again in November if we feel it's appropriate. Well, we can discuss similar things. I've not been notified of any urgent business, so thank you all for your attendance, and I look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.